Afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's panel discussion brought to you by HR Association of India. At HRAI, our mission is to create platforms that connect, inspire, and empower professionals through meaningful conversations and shared learning. On behalf of HRAI, I extend a warm welcome to our participants to today's discussion on this insightful topic, the loyalty shift, redefining commitment in the modern workplace. First and foremost, our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speakers for joining us today and contributing their valuable perspective to this panel discussion. Mr. Danish Sheikh, Head HR Center of Excellence at ACG Capsules. Ishwarya Srinivasan, DEI Leader, HR Leader, Production and Supply Chain at Decathlon Sports India. Ruchi Agnihotri, Counsel, Legal Advisor, Arbitrator, Independent Director and Entrepreneur. And Sagar Vadapurkar, seasoned HR leader, people strategy, and culture expert. We are truly honored to have such accomplished leaders with us, bringing their expertise and experience to today's discussion. Also, Mr. Rajat, who was part of this panel, will not be able to join us today due to some medical exigencies. To know more about our speakers, you may follow them on LinkedIn. Their link has been shared, their profiles has been shared in the chat window. For more information about HRAI, our upcoming events, please refer to the links shared in the chat. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's session, Mr. Sagar Vadapurkar, and invite him to take over as we move into this insightful and engaging discussion. Over to you, Mr. Sagar.
Thank you, Faisal, and welcome all of you, those who have joined from India and across. I think all of the from the behalf of the panelists, our sincere thanks to HR Association of India for bringing us together through. I think the series is called Connecting the Dots. HRAI has consistently created platforms where I think the conversations go beyond trends and focus on ideas that can genuinely shape the future of work. It's a privilege. So welcome all of you. Our topic today is the loyalty shift, redefining commitment in the modern workplace. While I was preparing for this, I got stuck at a couple of statements. Has employee loyalty really disappeared, or we have simply failed to redefine, that what loyalty means in today's workplace? For decades, I think we all know that loyalty was measured by how long people stayed in the organization and what is their performance rating. Consistent raters are always, supposed to be loyal employees, in that sense. Perhaps today it has measured how deeply, people contribute to the work that they are supposed to do. Employee loyalty hasn't disappeared. In my opinion, it has evolved. The workplace has changed radically after COVID, especially. Employees are now looking for a purpose for their career, growth, flexibility, trust, meaningful conversations and work, and most importantly, leaders they can believe in. We all know in HR, how leadership is very important for what organizations are looking at, for ownerships, accountability, innovation, adaptability, and performance. The real change is not choosing one over other. I think the real challenge is to create workplace where both can coexist, and both has to exist, because that's how the organizations will perform. Now, that brings me together that commitment is no longer demanded. It is earned every single day. I think that is a theme that I thought of, not through policies, HR policies especially, people policies, not through retention bonuses, not through employment contracts. Okay, I'll give you 3 lakh rupees after 4 years if you stay. That's not the loyalty anymore, I guess. Maybe panelists may differ me, but that's what the discussion is all about. So perhaps the question has changed. Instead of asking why aren't employee loyal anymore, maybe we should be asking what kind of organization deserves the loyalty of its own people. Because at the end of the day, businesses don't grow because people stay. Businesses grows because people believe that the business has to grow. So when people believe, performance improve, innovation flourishes, culture becomes stronger, and loyalty becomes natural, outcome and not the objective. So with that thought, we have exceptional panel representing manufacturing, retail supply chain, diversity and inclusion, and legal governance. Each of them brings unique perspective on this subject. Let's move on to their opening thoughts. So Ruchi, Danish, Aishwarya, one by one, I have a common question for you. When you hear employee loyalty in 2026, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? How different is it from what it meant in 10 years ago? And if it is mean to be a right word anymore, or should we be talking about something else, trust, engagement, or alignment? Let's start with Ruchi, then followed by Danish, followed by Aishwarya. Over to you.
Thank you, Sagar. Thank you, HRAI. And truly, it's an honor to be a part of this panel. I'm a bit of an outlier in the sense that everyone here is an HR professional, and I'm, a lawyer, as this way. So I'm not really, I'm not being the one that is actually helping in retention most of my career. I've actually been trying to manage the crises that come up when something happens, and helping them manage the crisis and see how the risk minimization or the liability minimization can happen. Having said that, I think loyalty is something that's generic across sectors, industries, and anything. You could be a corporate enterprise, you could be a law firm, you could be a hospital, you could be anything. Loyalty is not something that is specific to a particular sector or enterprise or some particular function. For me, loyalty is very layered. When I see it from the lens of, say, corporate governance or something like that, it's very layered. Loyalty does not necessarily mean slavish sort of commitment to a promoter or to a particular organization, or even just staying. Sometimes it could mean, and as the questions progress, sometimes it could mean very, very different things. Sometimes it could actually be mean reporting your supervisor. It could mean many, many things. So it could be a compliance function. It could be something where legal issues could be arising. Loyalty is many layered, I feel, and we can't stick it to what the general promoter driven enterprises would want loyalty to be anymore. Loyalty cannot be something where you just stay in an organization and you are really, really committedly, blindly, I would say, loyal to the organization or to the people behind that enterprise. So I think it's better that we keep. I mean, I keep my introductory statement just short, and I think it's better to address this question as we are dealing with the specific questions on loyalty in different sectors, or how we think about loyalty. But I don't think loyalty should be as we understand loyalty.
Sure, great. Great start. Let's move on to Danish.
So, whenever someone says that employees aren't loyal anymore, I always wonder compared to whom. Because organizations also haven't really stood at the altar saying, till restructuring do us part. So, and I'm not saying this to criticize organizations. Businesses have had to adapt to technology, shareholder expectations, changing markets, and at the same time, employees have adapted too. So the real story isn't that loyalty has disappeared. It's that, both sides have redefined what commitment looks like. For years, if we look at, even research for that matter, we've always equated loyalty with tenure. But I think we've been measuring the wrong thing. Someone can spend 20 years in an organization and mentally resign after five. Equally, someone can spend 5 years creating extraordinary value and leave on good terms, recommend the organization, and even return later. Like, for example, I did with ACG. Now, if you look at my CV personally, I've worked with 9 organizations in 18 years. Now, on paper, that means not loyal, right? But I've also come back to ACG, which is my current organization, across 3 different stints. First as an intern, then as an LNOD lead, and now as the head of HR for of Excellence. To me, that's loyalty too. It's like Aeon says, say, stay, strive. That's the engagement model. So it's not just about whether people stay, right? That's like 33%. It's also about whether they speak positively about the organization. Uh, are they willing to go above and beyond? So in 2026, loyalty is a mutual choice. Both the employee and the organization want to continue to choose each other because the relationship is creating value. And, it's not uh, measured whether someone leaves it. It all depends on whether they'll happily come back, whether uh, they would proudly recommend you after they've left, and that's what actually shows loyalty nowadays. So that's about it for me.
Superb. I think a fiery start. That's a very good perspective. Let's move on to Aishwarya. I think she will try and bring in very different perspective because of the, belonging, representing a different industry altogether. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Thank you, Sagar. Thank you, HRA, and thank you, Ruchi and Danish, also for bringing in your perspectives. I think very contrastingly, I come from an employment where I have worked in the same company for almost 17 and a half years. So does this mean loyalty at its best? Probably not, because as
Wow.
the title even suggests, redefining commitment. I feel the word is more about commitment for me, because through the last 17 and a half to 18 years, probably I felt committed to the workplace, and the workplace also committed to me as a person. Because 18 years, you also sailed through a life along with your career, and the efforts that the organization puts also to support a person's journey through this is what will create that commitment. We were probably talking 10 years ago about tenure. I think no longer we are talking about that. It's all about, probably how Danish highlighted, it's about creating that value. And that, I feel, is the most important word. And I, I will talk about it a little bit more deeper about how is it a structural shift or a generational shift. But I believe that a person can remain loyal as long as they are learning, because that is the key word there. This is my opening statement. So for me, let's redefine it as commitment, and that should get us going, is what I believe.
Great. I think, great opening statements. I'm sure the crowd, who's listening or, is a part of this session, are now excited to hear, the next part of the, session. I think it is important, since Aishwarya, you touched upon, the generational shift, because every organization has Gen Zs, those who are working, and, very soon, we'll have anything around 35-40% of Gen Zs working with the organization. Whereas there have been a lot of changes post COVID, especially in tech environment, where there have been laid off, thousands of people, getting an email in the morning at 6 a.m. that, hey, look, you are no longer working with us. There is a hybrid environment. People are not meeting each other. It's online environment. Then there is also, something called gig economy. I'm sure at Decathlon, you will like Zomato, like Swiggy, you will have a lot of people, those who are, on a gig kind of a, thing, like Ola and Uber and those kind of things. So is this shift that you were talking about, generational or structural, keeping that commitment or loyalty, both, either or, in mind, Aishwarya?
Great question, Sagar. As you were even telling, I was actually running through a journey. I just recollected, through your words, I recollected the entire COVID timeline. Maybe I will also tell how it all structured in my thoughts. See, I believe that the whole of how we are working today is fueled both by generation and also by structure. It is not one of them, or it is not. I mean, it is also, I mean, in the reality, it is both of it, because every generation, I believe, carried a significant shift, both in terms of value and also in terms of our structure. If we all recollect how our grandparents were actually associated with government organizations or government entities, they would have easily put in 30, 40 years of service. And that's where the loyalty was associated with very long term tenure association, right? And in 1991, a lot of industrial reforms happened. And what happened post that was a big boom in the private sector companies coming, opening gates for the employment opportunities. And then it became a bit natural that people actually chose different companies for different stages of life. Somebody who is just become a father would choose something. Somebody who's at the peak of their career would choose something, and somebody post retirement would also choose something. So which means that different phases had different work opportunities. Then I think came the IT era, wherein all these massive recruitments started to happen. Talent started to become in demand. And I think it was very natural for people to switch over every 4 5 years once, because there is a lot of opportunities for them to learn and also to contribute. So that era happened. Now I think we are also in the era of AI. It has just begun, and we can also already see how the changes are happening around us. And I think probably due to we being more efficient, I think we can ourselves work on a lot more different jobs probably in the coming years, which means that one person can have multiple different jobs. And this can be also associated with a gig economy that we are actually talking about. But I'm also reminded to share something very a survey, a short survey that I did within Decathlon for a one particular team, which actually had three different generations working in almost bigger proportions. So the team that I am associated with, which is more around the manufacturing and the supply chain team, it has people from Generation X, people from Generation Y, and also people from Generation Z, almost in a good somewhere around 20, 35%, 35% kind of a representation. So when I also asked them what actually for each of them, what does it mean as a value that they bring into the organization, the Gen X told that they the value that they bring in is actually loyalty, which means that they're very loyal to the company. The company can be in difficulty, the company can be in best of its time, they will choose to stay with the organization no matter what happens to the organization. They will continue to put their work inside the organization. Whereas the shift majorly came from millennials, wherein they say that they continue to remain loyal, but very differently to their jobs and not to the companies, which means that they love doing what they do, and any hindrance to that, maybe they will start thinking about switching over. Then comes the Generation Z. Very interesting perspectives when they said they are also very loyal, but to who they are, which means there it is the authenticity that matters the most for them. So if you see, all the three generations are actually being loyal, but to different things. So it's only the value that actually really changes. And to just also come from a perspective of how the companies are organized, etc. I think it's also the company culture. I think the time of existence of the company, how many generations it has seen, the ability for the company to adapt also matters the most while it comes to committing the employees to the workplace. So as much as we tell that we recruit somebody, I think they also recruit the companies. The people also recruit the companies. So, and I think it has to go hand in hand is what I would say, Sagar.
Well, a big statement. So when an organization is recruiting somebody, he is also recruiting he or she rather is also
Yeah.
recruiting the organization. So I think, well said, Aishwarya. Let's move on to Danish. Since Danish, we talked about era of COVID. I think it's almost 5.5, 6 years. That we've all come across. We've come over of those days. But the question remains that the did the pandemic permanently break the psychological contract in between the employer and the employee, or did it just accelerate something that was already happening? I think from manufacturing, pharma, ACG is the biggest third party manufacturer, if I know that. They also have their own products. I think from that perspective, what is it that you will what is it that your thought is all about?
So, the more this conversation is progressing, the more this employee-employer relationship feels like a marriage. So, I'll continue that metaphor. Okay, so if I look back at COVID, uh, it did not break the psychological contract. It felt more like couples therapy, So it didn't create problems. It just forced both sides to finally talk about those problems. So, before COVID, organizations expected employees to go the extra mile. Employees expected that their loyalty and hard work would automatically translate into stability and career growth. Then COVID happened, and both sides suddenly realized, oh, we've been working with different assumptions. So if you talk about psychological contract, by definition, it is all those unwritten expectations that are there between employers and employees, and COVID didn't tear it up. It just rewrote it. So today, employees don't necessarily expect a job for life. They expect honesty, they expect fairness, growth, transparency. And, you know, in my job, I do a lot of employee listening surveys. And, when I analyze them over the years, I've realized something very simple. Employees can handle bad news. You know, they struggle to handle surprises. So if you tell them early, you tell them honestly, you tell them, uh, you know, in a manner that is palatable and treat them with dignity, they'll stay committed even when the message is not pleasant. You know, trust isn't built by avoiding those difficult conversations. It is built uh, by having them before people hear them on WhatsApp. That's, that's my point of view.
Great. I think, let's move on to, the perspective that Ruchi will bring in, which is, she clarified that she's not from HR, but, definitely, must be working with a lot of clients, where, she must have seen these situations and so on and so forth. So I think, so Ruchi, from, the perspective of, any manufacturing unit where it runs on the processes and compliances and the continuity of production, how does the loyalty show up in a factory adjacent environment versus a shop floor, or versus a corporate office environment, from the perspective which you manage with your clients?
Yes, thank you, Sagar. Excellent question. So this is, let's take the pharmaceutical industry, right? Pharmaceutical industry is heavily regulated. It is heavily regulated. Good manufacturing practices are absolutely essential. Um, you cannot compromise on quality, on efficacy, on anything, because lives are involved. And India, for example, exports to 191 countries. 20% of the generic medicines are manufactured in India, and we are third largest in terms of volume for manufacturing pharmaceutical preparations. And we are also 50% of our exports do go to highly regulated entities like US and EU and UK. So in a scenario like this, what would you call loyalty? Loyalty for a corporate headquarters situation would be that, I am very consistent. I'm aligned with the overall business purpose and the strategy of this organization. I am intending to stay here even through changes. And that is how loyalty would probably be seen at the headquarter level. Now, what is loyalty at the shop floor level? Would you say that that an employee who fails to report a slight deviation on the shop floor, which could actually spiral into a huge systemic failure, is loyal? Simply because he really is very loyal to, say, his supervisor? Or would you say that he is really loyal if he actually goes in and reports the fact that these deviations are happening? And you know or would loyalty be that I want to get this goal going of this much production, and the shop floor is cooperating in meeting production targets, giving a go by to strict compliances that are absolutely essential? So how would you say, what is loyalty here? I think as when I advise a board, or when I would actually talk to people who are actually making these policies, For me, I think it's really important that loyalty in these very highly regulated, corporate enterprises is seen from the lens of how robust are your, HR policies and procedures. Are you giving people the enablement to go and raise the right red flags, at the right time and say that, look, this is what is happening. Do they feel protected enough? I mean, we've just seen say TCS, what happened there. Um I'm sure there were systems in place. I'm sure there were policies and procedures in place, but the enablement was not there. The enablement to actually go ahead and look at the reputational risk that you run if something is happening in some small setup that you are running out of your multiple setups spreading maybe even across different countries. So therefore it's really important when we assess things like loyalty. Just see, there's the US FDA has actually issued a first warning letter to Purulia Cosmetics, for using AI agent to actually do their compliances. So, when you have these robust compliance mechanisms in place, how are you really going to say loyalty? So loyalty at the managerial level may be very different from loyalty at the shop floor. But according to me, loyalty would be something where, the employees are feeling that these conditions are safe. I am enabled. I can raise anything up, and the management is interested in being very, very compliant. So it's an enterprise risk management perspective, according to me. There has to be predictability. So we have to have very strict policies and procedures in place where an employee knows what is going to happen if they trigger something, right? Very meaningful training, and very, very, the training has to be extremely meaningful, and they should know where the last mile connectivity is there, that if one deviation happens, how that deviation can actually raise a serious uh, a serious problem for the entire enterprise. So it is, according to me, in say a very regulated sector, loyalty would be more about how are you managing risks, and how how robust are your policies and procedures, and how much is, let's say, the HR function from the headquarter level right down to the shop floor level being able to micro supervise this and ensure, because we all know, whether you take IDFC First Bank, whether you take the TCS, it all starts in a very small, innocuous, small branch or a small
Yes.
manufacturing unit or a small office. So, are you being able to get the message down? I mean, do you just have policies in place, or do you really have a robust, proper compliance, enterprise risk management that is going right from the bottom to the top? Because the implications, the consequences are huge. So that, according to me, would be loyalty. Loyalty to your job, as Danish said it, and or Aishwarya. Loyalty to your job. What are you supposed to do? How are you fitting into the larger picture of this manufacturing entity? And therefore, should you be doing your job to the best of your ability with the best manufacturing practices, or should you be loyal to your, say, supervisor? You know, so that's how I see loyalty from a compliance
Great.
perspective.
Great perspective. I think you said it. Since it's a very controlled, very regulator and regulated environment, plus it has to do something with the health of at the end user. At the end of the day, I think since we are on the subject of manufacturing, I have to come back to you, Danish, because I think that's where your core area is. So manufacturing businesses or enterprises often have longer tenures than services. It's a common
True.
uh, you know whatever perception or reality. I'm not getting into it, but yeah, that's what the thing is. So maybe plants are situated in a smaller cities or non-metro towns. So for people those who are at a level of production supervisor or production engineer, even for them, maybe fewer options are available because there is only one or two plants. So if he has to change the job, has to go from X company to Y company, there are no other options. So from that perspective, is it a implicated royal, a commitment or loyalty to the organization, or is it something else? And just because the options are not, feasibly available to me to change the job.
So, I think I'll give you the most stereotypical HR answer when I answer this, but it's honest and it depends, because sometimes, like you rightly point out, people stay because there aren't many opportunities nearby, but sometimes they also stay because they genuinely love where they work, and sometimes it's a bit of both. For example, when I interact with operators, when I interact with people who've grown through the ranks, they've spent 25, 30 years in manufacturing and still speak about product quality as though, every capsule leaving the line has their own name printed on it. And that is not lack of mobility. That is pride. At the same time, I also know people who've spent 20 years in one organization, and at the same time, they've mentally checked out somewhere around year six. And that's what, brings me to the same point which I shared earlier, that I don't think tenure tells the whole story. My question would rather be, are they still curious? Are they mentoring younger employees? Do they care when something goes wrong? Do they still look for better ways of doing things? Because staying is one thing, but continuing to care about that is something completely different. Retention measures your attendance, but commitment measures your ownership.
Great. I think this are very very practical perspectives. That I'm sure the audience is listening to, especially people those who are attending this session from a manufacturing side of the coin. Uh, Aishwarya, I want to ask you something which is maybe related to your organization or the industry, or the stream, that we are talking about, or, it could be a general perspective. So according to you, what is one engagement or retention idea that works on the shop floor that the corporate HR, completely underestimates? And I would, take you to few statements by Ruchi that, there have to be, robust HR policies which have to be, taken down to the shop floor and so on and so forth. So I think keeping that in mind, what is it that you think, which is the best way, the corporate, HR fraternity has to, one, ensure and do not underestimate underlined.
Sure, Sagar. I think both Ruchi and Danish touched upon it. Definitely, the one engagement idea is not an event, because very often people associated with HR are often associated with events for engagement. It goes far and beyond events. I would say it is by fueling the one best engagement or retention idea that works on the shop floor very beautifully, is the fueling continuous learning. This is a very important perspective that also talks about the culture of the organization. We can have policies and practices very strongly, as Ruchi said, but if we are not able to take it to the person that who's concerned about it, then we are miserably failing in giving the learning to the teammate. Very similarly, when Danesh spoke, he spoke about also how there are teammates who are with 25 years of experience. So, how are they learning? It is a very important perspective. Very often, corporate HRs, once they attain a certain tenure, we believe that they know everything. They can actually do the job at ease, and their learning stops there. How many times do we actually attempt to do the same thing that we have done over the years to do it very differently? So
Correct.
that is something we need to fuel. And I think that is also fueled not only by the organization. Even if the organization does it, the leader should be able to do it, the manager should be able to carry it in their hands. So it is a combination of different parties together. It is also the teammate, it is also the manager, it is also the organization. But what combines all these three is the fuel of learning. And this, normally people are very happy when they learn. they can perform at their best. And if they perform, they are automatically they are actually automatically doing their commitments, whatever they have promised. So they are actually happy at the workplace. So it flows up automatically. So for me, at the base of everything is learning.
Great, great. Yeah, I think I mean you are advocating what Ruchi and Danish has said. You're in fact supporting that. I
Yes.
think it is also very important, as all of three of you are saying, that the learning curve or the tight I mean, tight may be wrong, but right policies, of HR, designed in a AC environment but implemented on a shop floor, are equally, very important. They have to be inclusive, they have to be accommodative, they have to be people oriented, and so on and so forth. So that, I think, brings Danish me to our next question. Where do you think loyalty has really declined, or it has changed direction, as I was saying in the opening statement, from the perspective of loyalty to the company to loyalty to my career or career craft, in that sense. So somebody who's at the tenure of 10 years, first job in a manufacturing setup, you know uh, from the yesterday's definition, he or she is still loyal. But today, he has to kind of also see, there are children, education projections, and so on and so forth, and the family growth, those kind of things. So what is your thought on this, Danish?
So I think loyalty has not declined. I genuinely believe so. I think we've changed what we're asking people to be loyal to. Think about it. 30 years ago, a career was built within one organization. Now, today, it is built across organizations, projects, industries, even careers. So, naturally, people have become more loyal to their own learning, to their craft, to their employability. And I honestly don't think it's a bad thing. We spend millions as organizations telling employees to learn continuously, build new skills, get certified, develop a growth mindset, become future ready. And the moment they use the skills to explore another opportunity, we suddenly ask, what happened to loyalty? I
Yeah.
sometimes think we've created exactly the kind of employees we wanted and then got surprised when they behaved that way. As someone in HR, I don't think employees are abandoning organizations. They are managing their career risk. 20 or 30 years ago, organizations largely managed your career for you. Today, the employees know how to manage themselves. AI is changing jobs, industries are transforming, skills are becoming obsolete, and the pace of that obsolescence is getting much faster. So, being loyal to your own employability isn't selfish anymore, it's being responsible. And this is where, organizations have a huge opportunity. The question isn't how do we stop people from growing? It is, can we become the place where they can grow without them feeling that they have to leave? If an engineer loves solving problems, give them difficult problems. If a scientist wants to innovate, let them innovate. If someone wants an international exposure, create those opportunities internally before some other recruiter does. One of the strongest predictors of retention isn't compensation. It is the belief that I have a future here. The moment employees start, uh, or rather stop seeing a future, they start imagining a new future somewhere else. And research backs this. Like I said earlier, the Aeon say, stay, strive model. It is not about people staying because they're satisfied. It's about being engaged. It's about growing and the willingness to advocate for the organization. And Gallup also has similar theory.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I'll make a little personal. Like I shared before, I've worked with 9 organizations over 18 years. At the same time, I've come back to ACG 3 times. If loyalty meant never leaving, then my story does not make sense. But if loyalty means that maintaining relationships, leaving respectfully, continuing to value the organization, and even choosing to come back when the timing is right, that's a more modern version of loyalty. I've seen people, reject high-paying jobs because they had a manager who genuinely cared about them. I've seen employees stay through difficult periods because the organization stood by them when life got tough. And then
Correct.
I've seen people leave, gain experience elsewhere. and return because they realized what they had. So I don't think loyalty is dead, but the bar for earning it has become much higher. Employees don't leave because they're ambitious. They leave when they believe that their ambition has outgrown the opportunities that their current organization is providing them. And the best retention strategy, is that you don't make employees afraid to leave. It's making them excited to stay. You know, a lot of people these days feel that people are too transactional these days. And I'd even argue that, yeah, careers have also become transactional. But at the same time, relationships have not. People still stay for great leaders, people still stay for meaningful work, and they stay for the organizations that invest in them. Those human reasons behind staying back haven't changed at all.
Great, superb. I think both of you are, definitely bringing in a perspective that, how important the learning curve, the upgoing learning curve, which is important for organizations as well as for employees. Somebody, any organization who's having a robust rehiring policy also is making a sense for, those who are left 4 or 5 years back and want to join back, and in the meanwhile, they would have, kind of superly, achieved their, whatever polishing that they have to do with, new technologies and, so on and so forth. So I think, that's a very practical perspective. That brings me now to you, Ruchi, from a legal standpoint. Are non-competence, notice period and bonds, actually protecting, genuine business interest anymore, or they are the symptoms of companies trying to legislate, the loyalty, they haven't earned? I think, I have seen very few companies having, bonds and, fixed term contract period and, maybe a retention bonus tied to the, tenure nowadays. But still, I think there are a few organizations those who are doing that. So from your expertise or the client that you are managing with or working with, what is your thought on this?
Um, I don't think you can litigate loyalty. That's the first thing. The minute you are in a zone where an employee, when they join, they're signing things like non-competes or signing bonds, that's when you have lost their loyalty in the first instance only. I mean, that's not a lawyer speaking, that's just a person speaking who has managed teams. The minute they are put to terms and conditions of what restrictive covenants would apply when they join, uh, at the time that they exit, they're already feeling trapped and enslaved, and so they're already not feeling extremely loyal at all. um, to take it forward from where Danish left it, honestly, if they they stop seeing a future in that kind of an organization, that's the human part of it. Now, on the real legal part of it, honestly, you can have any number of non-compete clauses. It is not really legally enforceable. We have the Indian Contract Act, which very clearly says in section 27 that agreements in restraint of trade are void. You cannot force someone to stay in employment with you. You cannot force someone not to join someone who's even a competitor or anything else. It is not legally enforceable. In fact, even the US Federal Trade Commission has banned it. Of course, they had to withdraw the ban because it's not a federal thing now, and it has been left to states. But there are various states in the US that have also sort of banned or disallowed non-compete clauses and all in contracts. In Indian courts, it's simply not enforceable. And what does the employee feel when they're signing a non-compete clause at the time that they're signing their contract of employment? Is that, this is a company that doesn't want me to have a future. This company does not want me to work anywhere else, and somehow is, sort of attacking my right to earn a livelihood at some stage, and that is not a very good employee engagement policy according to me. So litigating loyalty is a terrible idea. It has reputational risks. um, you are never going to win this battle. I actually did a matter where this company was trying to, it was a financial services consultancy, etc., was trying to somehow enforce things in terms of, employee stock options. In fact, the employee there was, it was nothing to do with non-compete and all, but the employee there was actually wanting to get employee stock options, despite the fact that she refused to, she didn't even complete a year or 2 years. I'm forgetting the facts. It's a very old matter. Even there, the company was running into trouble. Though honestly, the company was the one that was being held to ransom there. But still, it's impossible for you to actually take a litigation forward on something like bonds. And my point is, see, for example, I'm a lawyer. I've been trained. I've been taught things that are that are in my head. So what am I going to do with data? I know how to draft a petition. I know what to do. I know how to give advice. I know what I've researched. I know my laws. There are so many things that we carry within our head. So those cannot be controlled. You cannot restrain them from sharing. Yes, when you have private, confidential data or confidential information that you don't want coming into the, and that employee is going to be handling that, you must have non-disclosure agreements
NDA,
which
yeah.
survive leaving employment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those can be nice, those can be worded in such a way that the employee understands that this is important. So data must be protected, confidential information must be protected, sensitive information like maybe production figures, or some new disruptive product, or some disruptive pricing that you're intending to bring, or something, you can definitely put them to terms and conditions, which says, and nobody is going to have any problem, even if
Even the
the start.
financials for that matter.
Yeah, financials, that's what I said. Anything that you have. Also, keep your notice periods normal. I mean, who can who can have like 6 months, 4 months, 5 months notice periods? 30 days, max to max 60 days, even 90 days, according to me. Though people do have 3 months. It's not good. And really, I think Danish really hit the nail on the head. And in the law firms and all, this is very, very, because law firms are still being run like the old Indian promoter driven corporate enterprises, where there's personalities that are in place. Don't take it personally. Exactly, you've created this person who's able to see um, a different future for themselves, and so therefore keep the door open, because when you keep the door open, you're allowing that talent pool to feel enabled, exactly like Danish. He's gone back, and clearly they kept the door open, and they kept that, and they allowed him to feel that he can go back at any time. And that is what keeps you from, whether you have rehiring policies or not, if the management is such that even if they're not able to retain you for whatever reason, that I can go back here at any time. That in itself is a very big sort of enabler. So I don't think you should really have non-compete clauses. I don't think you should bind your employees. Legally, it doesn't really have much traction even otherwise. And I don't think it's great for your reputation. Uh, who wants to work, to give you an example, when the L&T chairman actually said, um, that everyone works 24/7 here, 365 days a year, blah, blah, whatever it was. I mean, I was very clear, if I'm offered to become a general counsel of L&T, I would not want to be, because I believe in work-life balance. So there are things that you say which make people feel, so, and if you are going to, enforce, an employee only understands the culture of the organization after they join, what you hear from the outside, and then your Glassdoor ratings. I mean, what is your Glassdoor rating going to be if people have unpleasant exits all the time, right? So I think it's important to not be made a fool of by employees, but at the same time, the organization has to be comfortable and secure. Actually, it's all about feeling secure. When the organization is secure, knowing that what they offer is always going to bring this pool talent back, they don't mind letting go also. Of
Yeah,
course,
great.
with the NDAs and the data protections and all of that in place. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that you should allow them to use the data as they please.
No, those are enterprise risk, matters. So, company will protect it, for sure. I think all three of you have built in a great perspective, for the audience. Uh, I think we have about 7, 8 minutes before we go on to question and answers. Maybe, for the audience, maybe one word, keeping in mind 2030 on your front, one sentence from each of you as to what loyalty and commitments that you would expect from either sides, the organizations as well as from the employees. Let's start with Aishwarya, then to Danish, then to Ruchi. Closing statements.
Uh, I think I would again put it on both the teammate and the organization when it comes to loyalty, because it is definitely not a one-way road. It is a two-way road. And I personally believe, or I will reinstate the capacity or the ability to provide learning and the ability to absorb the learning, a platform to create it, is what will redefine loyalty. And for me, definitely the number of years associated with loyalty word should vanish now. So, if I have to really conclude, it's only that.
Amazing, amazing. Over to you, Danish.
So if I had to sum up the discussion, it boils down to the fact that loyalty is never about staying. It is about continuing to choose each other, and your biggest competitor isn't another company. It is the future that your employee imagines for themselves going forward. And if you want to retain them, the best retention strategy isn't making them afraid to leave. It is about giving them reasons to stay. So that's my take on it.
Super. Over to you, Ruchi, from the perspective of clients that you serve. Yeah.
I think loyalty is about creating an organization that is secure and very secure in its ability to keep you in or keep you engaged with your larger business purpose, and makes you feel enabled and equally secure. So each individual feels as secure within the organization and feels wanted. And I think probably at that stage they would deliver. I think when you give them the responsibility that we trust you, that you can do this, and they feel enabled.
Great, great
So
perspective. I think,
enabling secure platform. Yes, one
yeah,
sentence.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think the unanimous opinion that we've been able to bring up through the discussion, that loyalty is no more about tenures. It's about the two-way traffic. That the organization also has to live up to the commitments that he or she was making up, and also towards the employee who can knock the door again, go out, learn something, polish himself or herself, come back, knock the door, and grow again with the company. Over to you, Faisal, for question and answers.
We have two questions, Sagar. If you're able to see, you can take that, or should I? mm, yeah, should
Yeah,
I call it out? Okay. So the first question is from Shreya, saying that with AI and rapid skill evolution, should organizations expect loyalty from employees, or should they instead focus on becoming organizations that employees are willing to return to later in their careers?
I guess Danish will be able to pick this up.
Sure. So, uh, you know, I actually think this is the wrong choice. It's not loyalty versus returnability. The organizations that earn one are usually the ones that get the other. So, if you look at AI has fundamentally changed careers. Skills have become obsolete much faster than what happened a decade ago. And employees know that remaining employable is now their own responsibility, and organizations now know that they can't realistically promise lifelong employment anymore. So instead of saying, how do we make people stay forever, I ask, how do we make people leave as ambassadors and maybe come back with new capabilities? So, when I talk to leaders, I often tell them that the employment relationship doesn't necessarily end when someone resigns. It's not like a breakup. Today's employee could be your tomorrow's customer, it could be a business partner, it could be a
Correct.
referral, it could be a brand ambassador, may even be your next hire.
Absolutely.
And my own career also reflects that. So that's not because I had nowhere else to go. It's because the relationship remained positive and there was still value left to create together. So, I think we are moving into that era of a boomerang employee, and organizations should embrace that instead of viewing every resignation as a betrayal. So, in the AI era, the real measure of loyalty is not whether people leave, it's whether they'd happily come back.
Great said.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danish. Hope Shreya has got the answer to a question. We have one more question from Dipti saying that how can organizations earn employee loyalty in an era where career mobility has become the norm?
Aishwarya, if I may ask you.
Yes, sure. I think it goes in very similar to what Danish answered. See, I think we have heard a lot about exit interviews. Maybe it's time we start doing stay interviews because that's very important. As Danish picked up, the biggest competitor is not outside, probably the ability to create future for a teammate in the organization. So for me, organizations should start doing this, because very often we are drawn by the culture we created decades ago. If we have to create a culture for the future, I think we need to understand what this generation of people believe in, probably even the older generation. What do they look forward in the coming times? So for me, that's something very important to understand and work around it. So that's my take on it.
Also, I think the stay interview should not happen once a person decides to put down his papers. I think it should be a part of the regular interactions. Otherwise, typically we all in HR know that after the resignation, the HR suddenly wakes up and hey, why are you going, and so on and so forth. I think that should not be the case. Yeah, over to you,
Absolutely.
Faisal. If we have some more time, I think one question.
I think the questions are done. There is one comment
Comment.
that has come from Yamini. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Regular one-on-ones, onboarding check-ins, time to time, HRBP connects are helpful. So
yeah. Great.
I think no more questions. So thank you. Thank you, Sagar, for leading today's discussion with
Faisal.
such energy and ease. Thank you to all the esteemed panelists. Your perspectives added tremendous value to today's discussion. For those eager to learn and grow, the recording of today's session is available on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. Thank you to all our participants for being part of the session. Your presence made the discussion even more meaningful. We look forward to welcoming you to our next session on the topic India's GCC boom. Are we ready for the next talent challenge on July 16, 2026? With that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you for being part of this journey. Take care and farewell for now. Thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you, Danish. Thank you, Sagar. Thank you, Ruchi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.